Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drugstores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music.
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
Especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.
We're a nation of immigrants, a country with roots in other soils. Nowhere is that more true than in the country of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, inviting you to tune in to A Taste of Louisiana and a new series dedicated to our food heritage. Louisianians are descendants of 7 primary nations that have influenced every dish we cook today. Welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. All right, how you doing there, Ron? Good to see you. How you doing, Vergie? Richard, great to see you. How y'all doing? Very nice to see you. Very nice to see you. Looking great right there. Hey, how y'all? Thank y'all so much for being here today in our kitchen. I'm Chef John Folse, and boy, do we have some great food in the pots for you today. We're cooking the cuisine of the Creoles, and we're talking a little bit about the cultures or the mixtures, the Creoles from that old Spanish word meaning to come together. You've seen that before on a box of crayons, Crayola brand crayons, a mixture of color. That's what we're talking about today. And we want to bring this wonderful culture, the uniqueness of what is Louisiana, to the rest of the world. And you're going to help us do that today with these great faces. And I'm going to feed you. Oh, yeah. That's why you're here. Y'all just relax. Creole is a word in evolution. What we called Creole in the 1700s is different from what we call it in the 1900s. Personally, I consider all of our native people Creole, a mixture of the fabulous cultures that make up the Bayou State. Today, we're talking about the New Orleans Creoles, the aristocracy, the society folks of the early city. Jan Bradford of the Hermann-Grima House introduces us to this fascinating group of people. Few words in American English are as misunderstood or as frequently misused as the term Creole. For 18th century Louisianians, Creole meant you were born in the new colony of European parents. The term implied a certain excellence of origin and entitlement to social rank. Today, Creole is defined as anyone born on Louisiana soil from the intermarriage of Europeans, Africans, and Native Americans who contributed significantly to the culture and cuisine of Louisiana. The Creoles were captivating, cordial people with a wonderful charm.
The Creoles were artistic, they were educated, many of them had wonderful libraries. Felix Grima had a library of over 1,000 books. And they were politically affluent as well.
For those who could afford it, living standards were high. They owned handsome homes with polished wood floors and wide covered galleries. The rooms were filled with imported luxuries.
Samuel Hermann was from Germany, and he hadn't done very well there, so he came here specifically to make his fortune. As soon as he could afford it, he had Brussels wool carpeting, he had silk damask draperies, he had old Paris china.
Of course, dancing was the Creoles' favorite amusement. Sunday was popular for theater and opera. By 1805, there were 15 public ballrooms with more than 500 people attending ordinary balls.
My favorite story about Creoles and dancing is the story that many Creoles went to Mass on Sunday in their ball clothes so they could get out quicker to dance.
Creoles insisted on fine wines and superb cuisine that was both inventive and refined. Creole cooking was and is sophisticated food based on European techniques. Sauces are wine or liquor based to enhance the subtle, delicate flavors of the food. Over time, Creole cuisine was masterfully combined from its French origins to include the other cultural influences found here in Louisiana. Many Creole planters built fine homes along the Mississippi River and amassed large land holdings called plantations. Here, cotton and sugarcane were grown for the world market. Among the celebrated Creole royalty were Gabriel Valcourame of La Petite Versailles plantation in St. James Parish, Jacques Romand of Oak Alley, and Jacques and Michelle Cantrell of Cabanossi Plantation. In 1831, Jefferson College was built in St. James Parish. Professors from West Point in Paris instructed young Creole men in the sciences, languages, and world affairs. After the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, Americans converged on Louisiana. The cultures clashed. To the Americans, Creoles were lazy. To the Creoles, Americans were crude and uncivilized. In time, Creole daughters married American sons, and a new Louisiana people once again emerged. Y'all can you imagine for a moment the aristocratic Creoles hearing from a daughter, "I'm marrying one of those Américains." That house wasn't happy that night. And actually the Creoles blame that on the destruction of this whole grand culture we call Creoles. The girls just marrying those inferior Americans. And but anyway, y'all, just a wonderful show today talking. The history is just fabulous about the Creole people. I have a couple of friends in the kitchen with me today. Richard Scott, who's curator of collections at the Hermann-Grima House and the Gallia House, right here. Richard, thank you so much for being here with us. Rolfe McCollister. Rolfe McCollister is a very good friend of mine, the publisher of the Baton Rouge Business Report and 225, two of our magazines, but a great friend and someone who knows a lot about good food. Thank you, Rolfe, for being here with us. Very nice to have you. And then Vergie Banks is one of the foremost Creole artists in Louisiana, and we have some of her fabulous collection here today, and we're going to talk to Vergie a little bit about what is Creole art. And then Timothy, I want you to, from the Baton Rouge Symphony, thank y'all for being here, and introduce the group and tell us what you're doing today.
Great, hi. This is Kristen. She's going to play oboe today, and Darrell is going to be on cello, and my name is Timothy. I'm going to be on violin, and we're just a trio out of the Baton Rouge Symphony. We're all members of it, and we're going to play a little music about from the Creole culture, a little bit from the Western Europe, but it's music that would be played in Creole plantations of the time from 1750s to 1850s or so. So it's the same era that we're talking about here.
Well, good. So there's the music, here's the food. Thank y'all so much. I told them earlier they look too young and beautiful to be that talented, huh? But anyway, thank y'all so much. How do I choose a dish or two for y'all today? Out of a Creole kitchen? Well, so much seafood was available to the Creoles, and it was just a real delicacy in the city. When you wanted to do something to really impress your guests, it was going to be either a fine cut of meat, never vegetables. Everybody had vegetables. Forget about that. That was poor man's meat, vegetables. So seafood, especially shrimp. Whatever, yeah, I know what you mean. Now stay in your seats, please. Yeah, these are some little, 21, 25 shrimp. And I'm going to barbecue them today. There's a great dish in New Orleans that started out kind of in the early 1900s called barbecued shrimp at one of the famous restaurants, Manali's. But this recipe goes back to the early days when the Italians brought in olive oil. They had olives, and of course butter was coming in at the hands of the English and the Germans, and herbs with the Ursuline nuns in the 1727 period. So all of those combinations went on top of fish, shrimp, crab to create a delicacy like the barbecued shrimp I'm going to do for you today. And it's a very simple thing to do. I've actually taken some. This is the way the Creoles would have done it. They peeled the tail, kept the little flipper on it, and kept the head, because you always want to suck the head after it's cooked. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, that's what makes it good. Into my little pot here, I'm going to make the sauce. That's all ready to go. I have butter, because butter would have been in fashion. Of course, I'm going to put olive oil from the Italians. And while I'm making this while I'm sauteing a few little pieces of garlic. Come on, y'all. Food isn't food in New Orleans without garlic. In fact, let me put the rest of these 3 in there right there. We're going to let this saute for just a second. And Richard, define Creole as you would.
Well, Creole means different things to different groups, but as relates to the Hermann-Grima House, we're talking about the French, but that can mean native New Orleanians, native Louisianians, you know, different cultures.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's an evolving term. I mean, Creoles in the early days, probably French and
Right.
Spanish next. And now as we look at the cultures, even today with the Vietnamese cultures coming into Louisiana, I guarantee you it's going to just continue to evolve, and I hope so. But anyway, y'all, the butter and the olive oil, you smell that? You hadn't smelled anything yet. Hold on. A little, what's the sheer sauce? You always wanted to have some kind of nice sauce into it like this. Hot sauce, it depends on how hot you want it. The Spanish came into New Orleans and brought a lot of this really, really wonderful hot sauces. And more? Fine with me. Beer, the Germans came in very early and brought beer making and survival of the city. Now, Richard, it was said that most of the Creoles got their interest and their love of everything, not from New York or Washington, but from Paris.
That's right. They kept up with Paris. You know, they were French, and that was the, you know, the masthead for French culture was Paris.
Were the Europeans looking at New Orleans in that period and saying something's happening there? There's a growth of music and opera and all of that. Were they interested in their country cousins?
I think so, and I think they still are. We have a lot of French visitors coming in, you know, and I think so, you know.
I liked it when they invented the cocktail.
That's right. That's right.
Their hospitality was limitless, y'all. There was no limit to the hospitality of a Creole.
Inventiveness
Yeah,
as well.
very. Yeah. Okay, y'all, I have a little beer. Let me put a little bit more beer in here because that doesn't smell right. A little bit more beer. I'm going to put some paprika in here because you want to turn it that nice pink color. And, of course, basil, thyme, pepper. You with me? Y'all with me? Into the cast iron skillet, I'm going to pour the barbecue sauce right on top of it. Now, you could actually do this on top of the stove. You could heat it and cook the shrimp right on top of the stove like this. I'm going to add a little touch of salt right on top of it, a little bit of pepper to spice it up, again, depending on how much you want it. Now, I would go into the oven with this. I have one already in there. Too spicy for you? I don't think so. Okay, y'all, now I have one already heating up. Oh, Lord, I tell you what, hold the door. Hold the door. Take a look at that, Keith. I want you to look at it first. Isn't that beautiful? Oh yeah, I guess so. Woo! Huh? Yeah, you talking about real cooking? Just take a sniff, huh? Y'all, this is one of the great Creole dishes here, and I'm going to let y'all taste it in just a second, y'all. In Louisiana, we are known both for our love of eating and our love of drinking. And each reputation is honestly earned, let me tell you. It's an integral part of our social gatherings. Mimosas, sazeracs, brandy milk punch, Ramus gin fizz. Y'all, they're just part of this culture. Kerri McCaffety joins us in the kitchen over at Hermann-Grima House. She wrote a great book on cocktails, and we made one together. I'm gonna eat barbecue shrimp. Wish you were here. Welcome everybody to the kitchen of the historic Hermann-Grima House in downtown New Orleans, and I'm real happy to be in the kitchen here with one of my good friends, Kerri McCaffety, who's not only an author, a photographer, one of my favorite books, Obituary Cocktail. Now the cocktail was basically invented here, legend says, right?
Yes, it's one of the theories about the term cocktail. And an Creole apothecary who came here during when a lot of refugees came from Haiti, opened an apothecary shop on Royal Street that's still here. He started treating stomach aches with a medicine that was a brandy mixed with his own bitters recipe. People loved this. People without stomach aches started drinking it, and he made it in a double-ended egg cup that was called a coquetier.
Coquetier, and that's how it got the name. Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things that you and I were talking about earlier was the fact that many of the Creole families made their own liqueurs by adding brandy to the local fruit, which they were very fascinated with. You ready to make one called Strawberry Ratafia?
Great.
Okay, look, we're going to start off with a little bit strawberries, just good fresh strawberries. They're in season in Louisiana now. Now, many homes made bounces and homemade wines and all of this, so this would have been pretty common in New Orleans to use fruit. Of course, an imported brandy would have gone into it. Now I'm making about a gallon of Ratafia, and any fruit is acceptable, any fruit at all. Now in this particular case, strawberries, 2 cups of brandy, and I would allow this to steep. Not many ingredients here, right? I would take a little cheesecloth and put on top of this in a cool, dark place, and I would allow this to sit for about 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, we have what I have in this crock right here, Kerri. You see just the strawberry. You see how the liquor's infused that beautiful red color? And oh, the smell is just incredible. Now to finish it off, the Creoles didn't want to wait too long. So, and I'll let you stir this right here if you don't mind. I'm going to add a couple of cups of sugar, and of course New Orleans crystallized sugar in 1797, which was another reason for making their ratifias. I'm adding just regular water to it, and of course by dissolving the sugar and the water together and allowing it to sit another couple of weeks, you have this wonderful bottle of strawberry ratafia. Look at the gorgeous color. You ready to sample some?
Yes.
Huh? Now you can have it over ice as a cooler, or you can have it as a cordial, just like this. So Kerri, thank you so much for joining us today as we make Ratafia, and hopefully our batch will come out as good as this one.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all, I tell you, the cocktail was so important in early Louisiana that even one of our most famous of governors, Huey Long, brought his bartender, right, Rolfe, up to Washington and to New York, to the Waldorf Astoria to show him how to do a proper Ramus Gin Fizz. He wasn't fooling around. I don't know if he flew him or drove him up there. Here's the Ratafia that we made just a couple of minutes ago, and it's really nice and sweet and oh. The Creoles would have actually put another delicacy, crushed ice, into this. A little bit, possibly of a soda of some type to make this a cooler like the mint julep of Kentucky. It would have been a nice cooler on the front gallery of one of the great houses. So y'all, you saw the barbecue shrimp, it was great. You saw the wonderful, oh, I guess so. I have another pan here. Now look what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do probably one of the most famous Sunday dishes in all of Creole country, no matter whether New Orleans or the Creoles around the state. And that is this wonderful daube. Daube from the French word roast. And of course to have a good quality piece of meat was wonderful in the Creole kitchen. And remember, they were extravagant. So if guests were coming, there'd be a lot of this meat on the table, legs of meat and roast. And what I've done, I've already taken this beef shoulder roast and I've cut a couple of little holes in it because there's an old Creole term. Anybody ever heard the Creole term picade? Huh? Picade meant you drank too much of this. And you were walking down the street kind of fumbling around and it'd say, gassa, and not picade. Another drunk one who's overstuffed. So we're piquing or overstuffing this wonderful shoulder roast right here, and we're gonna make a daube. And a daube was always served with vegetables. Of course, I'm gonna put, remember I said vegetables were always considered not too favorable on a Creole table? Well, if accompanied by a great leg of lamb or roast beef, then of course it was acceptable. So I've seasoned it. I can put some spice in it. The Creoles didn't like a lot of spice early on. Spice came into New Orleans later. And do you find that to be true, Richard, in the foods? I know you brought a lot of early Creole books from the 1800s. What about spice?
Well, that's true. You know, it was more like French cooking at the very start, but then all your different influences that were coming into the city. Also, you have to remember that all the cooks that cooked this food were of African and Afro-Caribbean influence.
And there was a lot of spice there.
That's right, and that would, you know, work into the cuisine that way.
Right. And that's how the cuisine and the culture basically came about to create all these wonderful things. And Lafcadio Hearn, one of the great early food writers of New Orleans, actually started writing about the cuisine what, about 1880 or
1880s.
1880, and started to record the cuisine of Louisiana, and that's a lot of the dishes we cook today. So I have this wonderful daube going here, and Rolfe, since you're with the Business Report and you've seen an influx of a lot of people, Baton Rouge is growing all the time. How do you find the food culture of New Orleans making its way to Baton Rouge?
Well, I think that a lot of the folks in New Orleans certainly have welcomed some of the restaurants who have moved here. We've seen Galatoire's, we've seen Mandina's, and I think they certainly have an affinity for some of their home cooking. But I think they've also discovered a lot of good restaurants in Baton Rouge as well.
Well, you know, the foods of Louisiana, when you look at the great Mississippi River, which is our super highway through the state, all along those wonderful little villages that pop up, whether the city of New Orleans, Baton Rouge, all the way through the top of the state. I mean, just incredible cuisine. So New Orleans is known for our famous Creole, but of course there's a lot of good food in the state. I noticed you have a couple of magazines there in front of you.
Yeah, I do. I have one. We recently went to our national convention, and we were very excited to win several awards. One of those awards was a gold medal first place for the best business newspaper in the country, besting Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. But one of my favorites was the award first place gold medal for best front cover. And it just so happened to be our entry was none other than one we did on a story here on John Folse. The headline was Made in Louisiana. People know native son John Folse as a tireless, telegenic chef, but he's also a food manufacturer, publisher, teacher, and cultural ambassador. The common thread is Louisiana. And this was the Russian tea dolls, which we did, showing John in wearing all of his hats. and that reminds me of the time when John and I teamed up when he took Creole cooking to Russia. And Russia has never been the same, folks.
We brought down the Iron Curtain. I tell you, Rolfe and I did it. We brought it down. And Vergie, we're talking about Creole art too, because while my daube is browning, and Keith, why don't you get a good shot of this? While it's brown, take a look at that, y'all. Tell us about your art, because you actually depict the Creoles in art.
Absolutely. I've brought cutting okra, which is a tribute to my mother, who used to cut okra by hurricane lamps. And also we have an image that was designed specially for a Creole artist named Terrence Simeon, musician, put on a cover of Creole for Kids. And it's all over the world now. And it's Creole with the backdrop. The little girl playing the scrub books, the little boy playing the squeeze box, and the Creole flag in the backdrop.
Well, I tell you, your art is absolutely stunning. I walked into an art shop one day and I saw it, and it got my attention immediately. And I wanted you to come on and so we could show it. So thanks so much for being here with us. Thank you. All right, my daube is about done. My daube's about done. I have a little bit of my carrots, my vegetables, my potatoes. I think you have the idea. I'm going to put all of this. I'm going to add a little stock into it. I'm going to put a cover on it. I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven. Y'all with me? You following me? Now I have one in the oven, and one of my antique daubiers, and I want you to take a look at this. I've got to close this oven. This is the way the Creoles would have presented it way back when. Take a look at that with the vegetables in the top. Do you see that? And then, of course, I'm going to take the lid off. When I take the lid off, there's your vegetable service, and there's the daube right down into that pot, so nice and tender. Look at it, falling from the bone. You with me? That's when you know you're cooking Creole, right there. See that fruitcake? The Creoles brought fruitcake just into a new dimension. And people who hate fruitcake, you had Creole. And that one comes from Claire Lutenbacher's family, my cousin back there. And she's sitting right in the row with a nice smile on her face. That's a couple hundred years of tradition right there. Thank you, Claire, for sharing that fruitcake with us. Y'all, time flies when you're enjoying good food and good conversation with friends in the kitchen. Thanks for stopping by as we continue to explore the unique food heritage of Louisiana and cook up another great taste of this state. We love you. Come see us.
To purchase the Encyclopedia of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse, featuring more than 750 traditional recipes, a CD-ROM of the book, or a copy of the program featuring all 3 episodes of Today's Culture, call the number on your screen. Major underwriting for A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse was provided by the Baton Rouge Convention and Visitors Bureau. In Baton Rouge, our past is your present. Baton Rouge, authentic Louisiana at every turn. And People's Drug Stores, serving South Louisiana for generations. George and Shirley Picu are proud supporters of A Taste of Louisiana with Chef John Folse. And by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting. Our mission is to tell Louisiana's story to the world. And by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism.
Where you have this architecture, history, music,
And the bittersweet cry of the blues.
especially the blues.
There you go.
How about a dozen?
Red beans and rice.
We rolling, y'all.